we're now at the below the line tax deduction. So these are for people who, instead of taking the standard deduction, they will choose to itemize their own below the line expenses instead. And the big one that has been talked about for several months is the state and local tax deduction. So the state and local tax deduction is something that prior to the Trump administration and the Tax Cuts and Job Acts was unlimited. So if you lived in a state where you had state income tax, and in any state where you have a homeowner who's paying property taxes, those state and local taxes were something that you could use as a deduction on your federal tax return, right? So it's like, I already paid these taxes at the state or the city level. I don't also have to pay taxes at the federal level. Well, the Trump Tax Cut and Jobs Act limited the state and local tax deduction to $10,000. And, you're not don't have to be a genius to look at the map and figure out that it most penalized people in blue states, just so happens to be, right? But this is something that even Republicans in some of these blue or purple states who might be in a House where they won a Republican seat, but it's in an area that's relatively blue or purple, they've been pushing against this and saying, hey, our constituents don't like this, right? Like, I'm a Republican in New York and I have constituents who are paying $20,000 in state income taxes, and this is killing them because they can only claim up to $10,000 under the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. Now, on the campaign trail, Trump said that he was going to do away with that limitation. Matter of fact, he phrased it like he was going to come in and like save the day, and failed to mention that he was the one who instituted the cap in the first place. But this bill doesn't even do away with the cap. It does, however, greatly raise it. So it takes that SALT deduction from $10,000 cap up to $40,000, which would potentially allow a wider swath of people to use more of a deduction for what they paid in state income taxes. So that's the main below the line deduction that we'll cover. If you're following our pathway, we're now at the taxable income portion. We're going to assume that in our example, this person has calculated the taxes that they owe based on the federal tax brackets, and now we're at the tax credit stage. And for tax credits, this bill increases the child tax credit to $2,500. It's currently $2,000. So in the example of a person who owed $5,000 in taxes, this $2,500 credit would reduce that bill to $2,500. It's also important because a portion of the child tax credit is refundable, meaning that even if that tax credit took you to the position where you didn't owe taxes and would be due a refund, then you could receive a refund for a portion of that child tax credit. So a big deal if it were to pass. It increases that child tax credit for each qualifying child to $2,500, up from the current $2,000 level. I want to just make sure you understand where we are with this bill. This one big, beautiful bill act, as it has been titled, will now go to the Senate, and the Senate will have to decide whether they're going to make some amendments or modifications, or whether they're going to accept it as is. But whenever they're done with that process, they're going to send it to the president's desk to sign. So this is the time, if you are reading through this bill and you're seeing things that you think are terrible, to contact your senator to let them know that you're displeased, because especially if you're a federal student loan borrower, or if you're a low income earner, or you have just a sympathetic heart to a low income earner, there's stuff on here that needs to be changed and will hopefully be changed. So it doesn't mean that this is the final text of the bill, but it does mean that there's enough in here to be concerned as it stands. So I would encourage you to reach out to your representation and let them know that you're displeased.